right. Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started now. So just, and before I start, just note that we currently have 4 members. We'll take attendance in a moment. We have 1 member who's running a few minutes late, which will make 5. And I'll just advise the applicants as you come up that 4 is the minimum quorum. So if there were 1 member voting, against a project out of 4, that would be a no. So we'll give you the opportunity, depending on how many members we have at each time, as each item comes up. But we should have our 5th very shortly. But I don't want to waste anyone's time, and I want to get things started here. So with that, I guess we can start off with an attendance. And Maddie, do you want to?
Here.
Here.
Here. And Cheerwood.
Here. All right. And I'll note that we are expecting board member Carla Elia to arrive shortly. Okay. And with that, so let me just look at the minutes from last meeting to make sure that we have enough members here. We had, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, we're good. So in fact, it was almost the same same attendance as tonight. So everybody who's here can vote. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the July meeting?
Angelica Kinganis motion to approve the July minutes.
Michael Aronson, second.
And I'll just do any objections. No objections. The minutes are passed. Okay, so with that, we will move on to our main agenda for the evening, starting off with new business. The first item on the agenda is Planning Board 05-2023 and Planning Board 06-2024. This is a request for extensions of a previously granted approvals for final subdivision and for tree removal at 81-89 South Highland Avenue. We'll bring the applicant up, and you can introduce yourself and then just kind of let us know where you are with the project and what the request is.
All right, good evening. For the record, my name is Daniel Patrick from Cuddy and Fader. Here on behalf of the applicant. We are requesting a 90-day subdivision or final subdivision extension, as well as a 120-day extension of the tree permit, tree removal permit approval. So since we last appeared back in June, I believe it was, we have, we acquired the plat from the prior owners, and we actually submitted it last week for signature from village staff, planning board chair. And then once we get those signatures, we're going to take it and the rest of the necessary approval documents to the county, hopefully record it, and hopefully this is the last extension request and we'll be asking this forward.
I'm sorry, Mr. Patrick, can you just turn the green light on? The green light on?
It's green, yes.
Are they not hearing?
I can speak louder.
I think we all need to project a little bit. Sorry.
All good. As far as the tree approval, what's the frequency of the tree removal? 120. Either of you can answer. Okay, 120 days. Okay. Board members' questions.
No changes in the project.
No changes in the project, no.
Site plan still the same.
Correct, yes.
And plats sounds like are here somewhere in this building ready for
Somewhere in
signature.
this building, yes.
All right, great.
I'm sorry, just,
Hopefully.
what were you saying about the financing, or you didn't say that? You're not there.
We're not there yet.
At what point does that plat become finalized? Is it permit, or is that upon acceptance by the county?
Signed by you.
We've got the Department of Health signature. It needs to be signed by the tax assessor as well, and then submitted to the.
Once those are done. So this will be the last.
Got it. So the financing is relevant certainly for the tree removal, but for this process, this is very close to
Yes.
being done. Perfect. Okay. All right. So no other questions from the board. Any other comments from staff on this one? This is not a notice application. It's an extension. So can I have a motion from the board to approve the extension request?
Eric Talbot, I'll make the motion.
Michael Aronson, second.
And we'll do a roll call.
Eric Talbot.
Aye.
Angelica Kinganis.
Aye.
Michael Aronson.
Aye.
And Seth Rowe.
Aye. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, next up is another, I believe this is another extension request. So this is gonna be for 14 Church Street, and the applicant is seeking an extension of a previously granted site plan. So we have JB here. You can kind of just give us where you are with the project and what the request is and for how long.
The extension is, we're requesting it for 6 months. And, we are in the process of securing, the contractor. The logistics of the project, it's been kind of intricate, so that's been one of the biggest problems for us.
What's the maximum extension on site plans? Is it 6 months? 1 year? But this is a 6-month request. Okay, I mean, nothing about the project has changed at this point from
No.
what we last reviewed.
Yeah.
Right. Other board members, just questions on this?
I just real quick, could you just say a little bit more about what the difficult logistics are that are delaying you moving forward?
Well, the project itself is kind of intricate because the way you have to do the work, and especially now that I think 204 Church Street is doing their work, which is very,
So you can't have access to that site while they're doing that. You can decide if
right.
your
because-
project requires you to have access from that parking lot to,
Yes,
Are you working on an access agreement with?
yes.
With
the
them?
ingress, yes.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I know that project is started, but I don't know what their time frame is. That's another reason to maybe think about a year instead of 6 months, because I can't imagine that'll be done in 6 months. Okay. Staff, any other questions that we should be asking the applicant? And again, this is not a noticed application. This is just an extension for site plan. So can I have a motion from the board for I'd recommend, I think Valerie's point was well taken, a 1-year extension on the site plan approval.
Eric Talbot, I'll make the motion for the 1-year extension on the site plan approval.
Angelica Kinganis, I second.
And we'll do a roll call, please.
Rick Talbot,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
Michael Aronson,
I,
and Chair Lloyd.
Aye, very good. Thank you. And next is another extension. So it's gonna be Planning Board 19-2023. This is for Water Street, Central Avenue. This request is for a previously granted tree removal permit. So I don't know if the applicant is here or online.
Chris, not sure if anybody else take over. This is where it's going.
Okay. So Chris, you're here. Is there anybody else from your team, or are you
Nope.
going solo?
It's just me tonight, guys. Thank you for having me. My name is Chris Hahn with WBP Development. We're here regarding 30 Water Street, as Seth mentioned, requesting the tree permit extension. We are scheduled to close next month, the middle of October, and we'll be getting work started by the end of the month. So we're very excited to move this project forward. It's been a long time in front of you guys, and we're happy to get things rolling here.
Excellent. The obligatory question, nothing has changed about the project since we last saw it, which was actually, we saw portions of it about, I think, the last meeting. So,
Nothing since the last meeting, correct?
and it's particularly regarding the tree removal plan.
Yeah, this is the extension, 120-day request for the tree removal.
Board questions? No. Staff, anything that we should be asking? Okay, and it sounds like this is very, very close to start, so I think realistic to think this is probably the last extension that we'll need to grant on this one. So, and again, just, this is not a noticed application, so I think we can move forward with a vote on the application. So can I have a motion to approve the 100-day tree removal permit?
Michael Aronson, motion to approve the 120-day extension for the tree removal permit.
That's the correct number, right? 120, yeah.
Correct.
Eric Talbot, I'll second.
And a roll call.
Duke, Angelica McGinnis,
Aye.
Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Michael Aronson.
Aye.
And Christopher Lloyd.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Same to you. Okay, we are now moving into kind of newer projects. So the next item on the agenda, this is letter D, if you're following along, is BAR 19-2024, 10 Maple Place, and this is a proposed BAR approval for proposed construction of a new front and rear porches. So what we'll do is we'll put the drawings up on the screen so that everybody can see them. I see you have the boards there. So we'll work with what's on the screen just so people can see it on Zoom, but we can also look at those if we need to.
Can you give us your name and residential address? please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Hugo Fernando Morocho. I'm the owner of the residence of 10 Maple Place. And few things I'm just trying to, basically,
I'm sorry, Mr. Chin, is Ms. Salmon your
Yeah,
architect?
yeah.
Okay, I'll let her over.
Yes,
Give
she
me
did.
1 second.
Okay, so basically, I was here in the meeting back in May, trying to repair the front porch because it's kind of bad conditions and all that. So basically, most of it, so now we're trying to reconstruct a new porch with new products and all that, and then on the back porch, I have the doors. It has steps going into the basement, it's all the way down there, so when it's raining, it's all the water goes into the basement, that's the reason I have the door, outside. And basically, that's what I'm trying to do. And then Gabriela told me I can bring some new products that we're gonna use outside. Instead of painting, we're gonna use AZAC, and then the deck, we're gonna use the TimberTech for the decking and all that, so those kind of new products, because now the house is painted, I think it has lead and all that kind of stuff, and then one side of the porch is kind of overrot and all that.
Okay.
So we're just trying to repair and fix it.
Maddie, can we put the drawings up? Or do we
Sure
not
can.
have-
Looks like we have the sound up now too.
Oh, no, okay.
Doing all the things. Okay. Sorry about that, Mr. Chen.
Maybe we can go to the elevations pretty quickly. I'm just noting that we can join by Carlia, sorry, hey Carla. Maybe we can look at, actually, probably the top drawing, the is probably better just to describe what's being changed. Yeah. So just make sure we're kind of clear what it is that we're focusing on here. It looks like the front and the back.
Yeah, that's the back,
Yeah.
right there, the back. Right, you can see the door, that door, the one we have right now, it has like 4 steps going down. So all the water goes in there when it's raining, so we're just trying to put it outside, and then just basically they have a little porch now, but so basically since we're gonna put the door outside, we're just gonna basically go in and rebuild the whole thing, make it updated basically.
So that roof that's on there in the back, that's
It's the same thing.
same, it's already there, then
Yeah,
you're
it's
just,
already there.
so you're moving the door up and they're is that staircase also there? You're just rebuilding that stair?
It's the staircase there and everything is there.
Okay, and then the front.
And the front is the same thing, is already everything there. We just try to repair, and then in this case, it's already painted, it's been painted, I think it has lead and all that kind of stuff. So we're just trying to make the new thing with AZAC and the TimberTech and the decking, and then that's gonna be doing the new thing.
Slide over the materials, so. I think they were labeled on the drawing pretty well, I think.
On this one?
Yeah, I think on the, if you look at the front elevation, just the comments on the left side of the. So the roofing is just gonna match existing.
Yeah, and then, yeah, the roofing and the actually, now the house is kind of really old. So since we're gonna do the project, we're gonna roof the whole house, and everything's gonna be matching.
Okay, so the whole house will be re-roofed. You said, maybe I was missing that, Maddie. So is there another material schedule? And I don't know if Gabrielle might be able to better direct us to %. Okay, here we go.
Ms. Salmon, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, we decided to go with AZAC. um, and, and the decking as well, either AZAC or, Trex. And so this way, will be, give us a longevity as opposed to PT that we originally proposed.
And the colors?
I have
We've got
The
samples.
colors are like off-white.
This is the decking, that's the AZAC.
Perfect. So these are, and that's,
This is a site.
That's
This is
the
a
site.
site.
okay. Are you residing the whole house or is it just the addition?
I think probably, I don't know, probably, I might, what's the whole thing, probably, I don't know, but.
But right now in this application, it's, you're just showing the new,
Yes,
what you're asking.
correct.
Okay.
Okay. See the budget.
All right, board members, questions?
What is to the rear of the property? What is the rear porch?
I have a little backyard.
And is there another house at the end of that property line? or-
No, it's a big garage from the neighbor,
Oh, okay.
yes.
I think we just stick on the elevations at this point and then we can kind of. Do them. Actually, did you have, were there, sorry, we can do a flash, but were there photographs of there were? There photographs. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
So we're basically staying in line, with the original structure, which is about 100 years old, so we don't want to introduce any new elements, keeping it, as is very simple.
got it. All right, any other questions from the board? I think it is pretty straightforward, it's pretty. Okay, so can I have a motion to open the public hearing on the application?
Angelica Deanna's motion to open the public hearing.
Carla Via second the motion.
Any objections? No objections are on a public hearing. Is there anybody in this room or on Zoom? If you're on Zoom, you can use the hand raise function. If you're here, you can raise your actual hand, to speak to the application. I don't see anybody in the room. And I do not see any hands going up in Zoom. Okay, so can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Michael Aronson, motion to close the public hearing.
Carla Via second the motion.
Any objections? No objections. That motion carries. The public hearing is closed. Staff, any other questions that we haven't asked that we should? Okay. It sounds like we have very clear materials. They were brought here. So I don't really see any particular conditions here. This is pretty straightforward. Can I have a motion, to approve the application?
Michael Aronson, motion to approve the application.
Eric Talbot, I second.
And a roll call.
Okay, Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Angelica Kinganis,
Aye.
Carla Elliott,
Aye.
Michael Aronson,
Aye.
and Chair Roy.
Hi. Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, so next up, we have the AR, this is item E on the agenda, the AR 20-2024, Mohegan Road. This is a BAR approval for proposed construction of a new single-family house. So I think what we'll do is bring the applicant in or, they're present or online. And then you can kind of give us an overview of the proposed, project.
Is there anyone in the Zoom audience for Mohegan Road project? Raise your virtual hand. I'll bring you over as a panelist. There you go. Nope, was that a mistake?
Is there anybody in the attendees list who's here to speak to the Mohegan Road project? All right. Give me another 10-15 seconds, and if not, we'll move on to the next agenda item. And we can check in on this when we get to the end of new business.
Oh, all
Hang on.
right.
Oh,
Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?
Let's
Give them a
let's
look again.
promote that person. Maybe there's a
Okay.
double check. I don't want to use this. No.
Hi, Michael, we can see that you're over. If you can unmute and turn your camera on, that would be great.
There you go. Okay, there's audio. Okay,
Hey,
We can hear
Michael.
you and see you.
good.
Hello.
Yes. So, yeah. Yeah, we can hear you, we can see you. So you're here for the Mohegan Road? Oh, now we cannot hear you. We heard you briefly earlier. No, now you're muted. Now we can see the mute icon. Before we could not see the mute icon. That mute icon is off, but we still can't hear you talk.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can, yes.
There you go.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Michael Gismondi. I'm an architect.
Michael, we've lost you
We've
again.
lost you again. It sounds like almost like a signal issue, like you.
Give me one.
Yeah, we do hear you a little bit, and if there's an issue, then one option might be to let you kind of figure that out, and then we can kind of.
Or you can dial on your cell phone.
Oh, that's a good call. Yeah. What option is it? Use your cell phone to dial in so we can get your audio stronger. Your video feed's actually very clear, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, the video is clear. Is that?
Now we hear you.
Can you hear me now?
And
No,
yes,
you can.
yes, yes. And now we can. All right. So you know what I'm gonna ask if.
Why don't you start reviewing the application and then maybe if there's.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hard for, I would like to be able to be walked through a little bit what these are. It's hard for us to do this but I guess what my suggestion might be is if you can work on dialing into the meeting, and then we can, actually what I'll do is while you're doing that is move on to the next agenda item, and then we'll come back, just skip over one and then come right back to you after we do item, Sherman Place. And I don't know if there's any way to give them offline guidance in terms of, yeah, and to do a direct chat, maybe.
We don't have that.
You don't have that, okay. Or if,
Well, Michael can hear us, right, Michael? Nod if you can hear us.
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, if you go to the top of the agenda, I'm gonna share the screen. You're gonna see the
Yes.
number at the very tippy top of the agenda. If you call in, I'll see a new phone number appear and I will enable your ability to speak. So see right here where it says dial in by phone.
Very good. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna kick you off as a panelist, and then when I see a new phone number on the next agenda.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes. Thank you.
move on to the next agenda item, but we'll come right back to you after that. So we're gonna move on to item F on the agenda. And we'll revisit E right after, immediately after. So, we're now going on to item F, which is BAR 21-2024. This is, 5 Sherman Place, and this is a BAR approval for the proposed construction of a new single-family residence. So if we can bring the team up for 5 Sherman or in, same thing as we just did. We have the applicant on the attendee list for 5 Sherman. And we're here for 5 Sherman, I'm assuming, gotten up. Okay, is that phone number up for?
no, it's the same one that's been here for a
Okay.
bit.
So. Again, last call for 5 Sherman Place. We can revisit again. Now I gotta take specific notes. Okay, so we'll come back to 5 Sherman at the end to see if the applicant has arrived. In the meantime, I'm gonna, for the sake of a very long agenda, move on to item G on the agenda, which is, and so just as a reminder, so I'm gonna go to item G. After we review G, I will go back to item E, which is Mohegan Road, where we were having some technical difficulties. But so item G, BAR 22-2024, this is 99 Brook Club Drive. And this is a BAR approval request for facade renovations to a pool house for the community. So we'll bring the applicant in, you can introduce yourself, and then we'll try to get our drawings up here on the board for everyone to look at. And you go from there.
Hi, my name is Matthew Cordone. I'm the architect for the project. And this was a project that actually was presented in 2021 and it went on hold for a little bit. So now we are revisiting it. We have changed the facade a little bit to do some value engineering and to allow for less glazing and more siding. So the design intent still stays the same. What you see in this rendering right here is the sides of the I believe that's the eastern elevation. There's more enclosure. The original application had more glazing, but we decided to put more closure in just to reduce the cost of the additional glazing. And again, the north elevation, similar to the same thing. We just reduced some of the glazing so we can have a little bit more cost effectiveness and efficiency in the building. This is the front elevation. It doesn't change at all. It stays exactly the way that it looks. Lastly, the western elevation is similar to the eastern elevation, and they match, with the same type of enclosure and opening. So the materials that we're using are still the same materials that we presented back in 2021. There's a gray asphalt shingle roof. There's a skylight system. The clapboard siding is a 5-inch exposure, and it matches the rest of the entire complex. In addition to that, it's also painted the same color as all of the siding in the complex. The glazing system are sliding doors that allow for the pool house to open in the summertime. And these are examples of the doors that we're using. And there's a Juliet balcony detail that we use at the doors. And that is basically the railing system that we're using. So that seagull gray is the standard HOA 99 Brook Club paint. And these are the Velux skylights that we're planning on using.
Great. And so that, just go back to that rail, is that railing, just the vertical stanchion and rails, that's all, it's approximately what you're. That's
all it is, yeah. It's a thin line fin with cable protection rails and a metal top.
It's a metal handrail at the top?
Yeah, that's correct.
Board members, questions? Do we have any photographs of the existing building? I think there are.
We do, yeah, we have a few.
Just for context for everybody. I know not everybody on this board was here when this was originally proposed in 21.
So just to give you a little background, that's the original configuration of the front, which we are not changing. If you scroll up to the window above, construction started, and then we had to pull back because of contractor difficulties. So we boarded everything up. We got as far as putting the roof on and the skylights, which you can see in this photograph here. What's left is the fenestration, right? So we have the doors and the siding.
Got it. I understand, and no board questions at this point. I know this is pretty straightforward. I think it was very clearly presented. Can I have a motion to open a public hearing on the application?
Carla, be a motion to open for public hearing.
Michael Aronson, second.
All right, any objections? No objections. We are now in a public hearing. Is there anybody in this room to speak to this application? Put their hands, pick them up. I don't see anybody. Is there anybody on Zoom? You can use the hand raise function if you are present to speak to this application. And I don't see any hands on Zoom. So can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Eric Talbot, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Angelica Kinganis, a second.
Any objections? No objections. That motion carries. The public hearing is closed. Staff, any questions that we should be asking before we finalize our review?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. All right, can I have, I think that we've reviewed it straightforward. I know this is largely consistent with what was originally approved by this board, and the changes I think were very precisely and clearly articulated. Can I have a motion to approve the application?
Michael Aronson, motion to approve the application.
Eric Talbot, I second.
And a roll call.
Okay, Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Michael Aronson. Aye. Carla Elliott. Aye. Angelica Kanganis.
Aye.
And Chair Roy.
Aye, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. Have a great evening.
You too.
Chair?
Yes,
Resolution. Make sure we're waiting for resolutions.
resolution.
Artwork.
Start work, yes, so for all applicants, we voted on a couple today, just a reminder that, so our approval goes to our building inspector and, once there will be a resolution signed by me, and then, that will be a prerequisite for the issuance of a building permit. You obviously don't start work until you have the building permit in hand. This is one step along the way.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for that one. Megan.
That was just a test. It looks like we have Michael back in two places, so I'm
Okay,
gonna
so
bring
let's
you
bring
over
both of
both.
them. So now, just as a reminder, we are gonna try to jump back to, item E of the agenda, which is VAR 2024 for Mohegan Road for a new, single family house. So, Michael, yes, so we can hear you on the phone.
Can
Yeah.
you hear me?
We can hear
Oh,
you.
good.
Can't
Good
see you.
evening. Thank you for your patience. My name is Michael Gismondi, and I am an architect, and I'm representing John Quebeca. He is the developer and builder of this home. It's a new single-family house on Mohegan Road. We've submitted plans and elevations and materials for the home. We basically have a very simple design and a color palette. And if you can see, I guess building, those are the materials. If you go back to the elevations, yeah, this is the typical siding. So the typical siding is the white clapboard that you just saw in the sample. The window trim is black. We have a black aluminum standing roof, standing seam roof at the front entrance, which is surrounded by a small area of stone, natural stone, and you can see that in the materials as well. The garage door is white, the trim is white. We've chosen to do a horizontal clapboard and some vertical siding just to give the elevation a bit more interest. All the fascias and trim pieces are white. And the roof shingles are a GAF Timberline black, which is more of a gray, dark gray. Again, if you could see that in the attached material samples. That's a typical window. That is the pencil joint stone surrounding a door. This is the garage door. This is the natural stone. And these are the roof shingles and the black metal seamed roof at the entry. That is the railing and the material we will use for the decking, which is a Trex composite style decking, which is on the deck in the rear of the house.
Got it. Do we have any like site photos, kind of neighborhood photos? Usually when we're looking, one of our kind of main concerns when we're looking at a review like this is kind of looking at how this is going to relate to the adjacent properties, especially with a new house like this.
Yeah, most of the homes are 30 to 40 years old. They have similar white siding. There's quite a few homes on that block, on that Mohegan Road. And if you, let's move to, yeah.
Where is this?
That's sort of a, yeah, this is sort of a blend.
Is that
Number 7.
Avenue, Michael?
Mohegan Road?
Right, closer to Croton Avenue?
I believe so, yes. you can see right on the left-hand side, on the right hand, we just passed it. That's the lot right there. This is the home to the right, sort of a gray siding. The house to the left is a tan siding. It's sort of a blend of colors, you know, mixture of dark grays and mustard and white and some off-white. They all have consistently, you know, gray roofs and white trim. There is a little bit of stucco, a little bit of brick. It's sort of an eclectic mixture of materials on these homes, which are probably, you know, post World War II.
Yeah, I would. I don't know if we may be losing our audio, but you kind of went out there a second. But I was just going to ask, and you know, I'm happy to hear from the board. But you know, in a project like this, and especially looking at this site, and you know, this is kind of a narrow infill between two houses, and those two houses are also kind of greatly different in scale. But just to see, from a scalar perspective, how this kind of looks and relates and fits in on that block. I think it's, you know, kind of critical to our evaluation of the project. Some sort of, you know, a scaled rendering where we can see the you know, see the houses on either side of it, and kind of how it fits in, and maybe even a, you know, like an aerial plan where this is, you know, fitted in, just to kind of see that relationship. I think that you very clearly kind of given materials of the house, but this standalone image, I'm having a hard time evaluating the project in context.
Well, it's got similar style roofs. They're all gable roofs, you know, in that neighborhood. They all have either single car garages or, you know, 2-car garages. They're all 2 to 3 stories in height. This site slopes to the rear, so the majority of the elevation that you'll see from the street is 2 stories. It's not radically different from any of the homes there. Again, none of them really have a consistent design feature other than gable roof, clapboard siding, windows that are double hung, which we're doing here. I think it's just a simple, you know, infill. This street is relatively sloping from left to right on our site, as you can see, just slightly. And the home to the right of us, if you spin, the one that's under some renovation there, that home has the higher elevation. If you move to the right, you'll see there's sort of a drop off. Or just keep moving to the opposite. Turn around. I'm sorry, to the left. If you move to the left, yes.
Yeah,
coming by there.
Board members on this question. I think for me, it's just, you know, I understand, and I don't see anything necessarily that's, you know, from the elevation that's, you know, I don't think you could be uniquely dissimilar here because everything else is pretty similar, right? There's a lot of things going on in this neighborhood. I absolutely agree. I think it's just hard for us to see, like, I don't see anything in the package that kind of shows how this relates, you know, whether in plan, in elevation to the buildings adjacent to how it fits. I think is part of it's a critical question that we, you know, that we're charged with evaluating.
Well, okay. So here, if you go back, that location map, and that doesn't show the footprints of the homes. Well, again, we're adhering to the setbacks, which are required in that neighborhood, and we kept the front setback consistent with the average of the 2 homes on either side of us. I think that the front elevation somewhat resembles pieces of the house to the right. It does have a projection entry, which has its own gable roof, which is similar to what we've got over that front entrance with the stone. I think, you know, you have a Cape Cod or ranch style house to the left, which is basically only one story. It's very difficult to relate to that if we're adhering to the two-story, you know, elevation, which is consistent with that neighborhood. I don't know how else I can give you information other than if you physically go out there and look at the site, you'll see that it's relatively consistent with the style of the home. It's not too modern. It's a traditional style home with double hung windows, a combination of clapboard siding and vertical siding, a garage door that's similar to the other homes.
Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry, a board member actually has a question.
Yeah,
Or
well,
comment.
it's actually sort of just concurring with what the chair said. I mean, I think it's really hard to you know, sort of assess and review this property without seeing it within the context of the adjacent properties in a rendering. And, you know, sort of showing the adjacent properties, the rear properties, the entrance to the property, landscaping would be really helpful. You know, the design in and of itself seems okay, but it is really hard to evaluate it without, you know, context. So I think that's all we're asking for at this point is to provide that context for us. I mean, I am familiar with that block. We can see that the architecture is quite eclectic. So it's really more just seeing it in context with the adjacent properties.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. The only context, I think if you show it in context in a two-dimensional drawing, what it's going to do is it's going to overpower.
Yeah, so I
Sorry.
think the board is asking for you to come back next month with the additional elevations. Am I correct?
That's correct. We're trying to get at this additional information. We can talk about it all night long, but I think we're asking for something visual. You know, when we make an evaluation, we don't want to be surprised when we drive by the house and it not be the thing that we thought it was. That's kind of what we're getting.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Now, before I do want to, so first of all, are there any other questions from the board or any other kind of comments about the design or the materials or layout? No, because we also I would like to open up a public hearing on this application as well. Can we have a motion, public hearing?
Michael, go ahead.
Eric Talbot, I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Ryan, will you second the motion?
All right, any objections? No objections, we're in a public hearing. Is there anybody in this room to speak to this particular application tonight? Don't see anybody in the room. Is there anybody on Zoom? You can use the hand raise function. And I don't see any hands going up. Before we adjourn the public hearing, just to be clear, Mr. Giamatti. So I think really what we're looking for is documentation, be it, you know, I think a rendering, you know, showing the houses to the left and the right, maybe, you know, even like a street elevation, you know, streetscape or, you know, street elevation, context rendering, would be really helpful for us to see. I think even in that site plan that the kind of the block plan that you provided, even just kind of, you know, in scale, putting the footprint of the house that you're providing, that also I think just shows from a, you know, a wide angle view, you know, where, you know, what this house looks like. And I fully appreciate that, you know, you're meeting all the required setbacks and area requirements as well. So that's fine. Do you have any questions about what we're asking you for?
No, I don't. Thank you. I understand.
Great.
Okay.
Any last board questions or staff questions? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Eric Talbot, I second.
All right, any objections? No objections. The public hearing is adjourned. Can I have a motion to adjourn this agenda item until the next meeting so we can review some additional documentation as we requested?
Eric Talbot, I make the motion to adjourn this item.
Angelica, again, second.
All right, any objections? No objections. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Giamatti.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep track of the agenda here. So I think we're moving up to item H, and then after H, I'll double check on, which are in place. So, item H on the agenda is a BAR 23-2024, and this is, a request, it's at 3 Mohegan Road, and a request for construction of a proposed second floor dormer addition. We were just looking at.
We're close, yeah. What else is there?
All right,
Good evening, I'm Lou DeMacy, I'm the architect for the project. What we're trying to do is very simple. We have 2 bedrooms on an upstairs style house, and what we're looking to do is add a much needed bathroom to the second floor. So what we decided to do is, in the back of the house, do a dormer that's not a shed dormer, but maybe an A-frame dormer that faces the back to give it a little bit more curb appeal and add that bathroom within that space. And we're matching all the materials, the siding, the roof, and the trim. The trim is going to be AZAC, and it's going to match the same material that's there now.
and the top of the dormer is just, at the same level as the top of the ridge.
That's correct. We're going to match it.
So the chimney will wind up going through
Yeah,
the center of the
it
dormer.
has to go through it. Yeah.
Okay. No change to the height or anything, or if you have
No.
to do any brickwork on that, that'll just be existing.
No, it's at the right height, so it's going to stay as is.
Okay. Board questions?
Oh, so. With this photo, I'm sorry, could you orient us on the photo as exactly?
That's the rear of the
Yeah.
garage. That's in the backyard.
Right, and then the house itself where you,
It's,
I don't know
it's
if we
in
have.
front of it, basically, because the driveway's in the back, the driveway from the street drives all the way to the backyard, and that's where the garage is. You're looking at the garage. There.
So but the dormer is going on the rear.
So, yeah, those pictures are relevant. If you want to scroll, I mean, here's a picture of the back.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Here's a picture of the back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's, I think that's
That-
the lower of the 2
Teeny,
pictures
teeny,
there.
tiny picture.
Oh.
Yeah, blow it up, blow it up. That's the front, that's the back.
That's right, that's the shot, and you can actually see that really tall chimney in the middle, which is gonna be now in the middle of the dormer.
And a lot of the homes back there have the same kind of dormer for a bathroom. This one didn't have it at the time.
Okay.
And they usually have shed roofs. I thought a peak roof would look better on this house.
Is there a photo that shows the adjacent properties? I'm just curious.
You won't even see it from the adjacent properties.
We have it right here.
Go back.
So it's that
It's that
gray,
right there.
right?
So you won't see it from, and that's the driveway that leads to the garage in the back. And that's the neighborhood.
We're now very familiar with it.
Yep.
Okay. Any other board questions on this one?
Along with the roof, the gutters, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. Can I have a motion to open a public hearing?
Aaron Talbot, I make the motion to open the public hearing.
Carter, you second the motion?
Any objections? No objections. That motion carries. We're in a public hearing. Is there anybody here from the public to speak to this application? Don't see anybody. Is there anybody on Zoom? You can use the hand raise function if you would like to speak to this application. And I do not see anybody. Can I have a motion from the board to close the public hearing?
Carter, you motion to close the public hearing?
Michelle, 15 second.
Any objections? No objections. That motion carries. I think that what we described is pretty straightforward. Staff, no other questions that we should have asked. And I don't think we really discussed any conditions. I think everything's matching the existing. The elevations are very straightforward. Can I have a motion to approve the application?
Carter, you have motion to approve the application?
Michael Aronson, second.
And a roll call.
Eric Talbot.
Aye.
Carla Elliott. Aye. Angelica Kiganis.
Aye.
Michael Aronson.
Aye.
Chair Roy.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I'm gonna make one more try right now, for agenda item F, for 5 Sherman Place. Do we have anybody, I don't think anybody's started up into the room new. Is there anybody on Zoom, who's arriving to present and speak for, 5 Sherman Place? And I don't see anybody raising their hand. Okay. With that, we will table that item for now and move on to part 3 of our agenda, which is continuing business of the board. And the first item on that list is agenda item 3A. This is Planning Board 08/2024 and BAR 16/2024 for 59-51 Central Avenue. And this is the request for a site plan for the conversion of a car wash, an existing car wash, to a proposed laundry facility, laundromat, and BAR approval of the changes to the front facade. So I know that we looked at this during our last meeting, and there were some staff comments. And I think probably if I can kind of, I mean, Tony and Valerie, if you guys can give us your, I know you both had memos on this. Or one of you speaking for both.
Well, we're down to really nothing left because, the parking was taken out of the driveway. There's no more site issues. I guess the biggest issue is the lack of parking for the site.
Right, and I think, in terms of the parking, a couple of things just to note. So I think it really comes down to just getting the record straight. So last time we had questions as to what the uses were originally. So we can take a look at the net increase, related to whether, for the parking regulations in terms of payment in lieu of parking in that area. And, last time you had certain uses and they were revised to have all retail from prior. So we were just raising the issue whether retail is really the use as opposed to it's technically a car wash, right? So it would probably be categorized as vehicle general under the zoning. So to a larger extent, that particular use does not have parking requirements under the VC district. So it'd be something that this board would more or less interpret as to whether the change in use really requires the net difference between the parking. It's semantic at this point because they do get a waiver for the first 10 spaces, but it is something that we just need to clarify for that.
And what, it's a waiver for the first 10 spaces, and what are what is the count of spaces that for the proposed?
So, right, and it's only supposed to be the proposed
Increase.
change, right, a change overall increase. So JB, if you can, yeah, there we go.
Mm.
So it's really retail number 3, I believe, is what you're proposing,
Yes,
and that requires like 6 spaces.
6 pieces,
Right.
yes.
So, I mean, I think we just need to reflect in the code, that it's really a car wash, not necessarily retail. And then I think there's some mathematical changes
Yeah,
that need to
that's-
be corrected.
It's less.
Yeah, in terms of total square
Square
footage.
footage, right? So I guess then, and to clarify, and just for the board and for everyone trying to follow this, so if you're changing from, use A to use B, and there's an increase of parking requirements from A to B, the first 10 spaces are waived.
Right.
So in this instance, the increase is the total use, the total number of parking spots required for this laundromat is 6.
Yeah,
Based on the code,
Right.
square footage and the code calculations. So whether, as long as it wasn't less than -4.
right, exactly.
Beforehand, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
Yeah, so that's why I think it's semantic. So I think if honestly, I think this board can take the perspective that the current car wash is automotive, which has 0 parking requirements. The increase of 0 to 6 is still within the number that would be waived. That makes sense. Okay. So other than that parking issue, I mean, we've kind of, I know we spent a little time on the site plan. We should just highlight what the changes are, mainly that there's no more.
The major issue with the site plan was, Tony mentioned that before, because of the slope and the grade on the street, we were counting 3 parking spaces as existing. They are existing, that's what being used, but it's over 5% slope. So in order to alleviate the issue with that, we didn't take into account or credit for any of these parking spaces. we're not proposing any changes.
And so how is that space utilized, just for clarity's sake?
Right now, it's like an entrance driveway and
I think there's two garage doors on that building.
Yeah.
So if you even park your phone, you'll be blocking those doors anyway, but
I think manage.
Are those garage doors for the
The warehouse, I
I know this is a kind of a sprawling structure, so.
Yeah, so, yeah, there you go. No, that's-
It's like here.
Yeah, I think.
I think it-
Yeah.
There you go.
So those two, so, okay.
But I'm just a little confused, because if you drive by the site, Jeter's that used to be in that site has an arrow saying we're next door, so are they using those two, that garage
I
right
think
there?
they're, well, no, they're not using.
Oh, because they implied that they had moved next door, there's a sign there, so I was just curious as to whether that driveway and those somehow, I mean, it doesn't look like a car wash, but
Right.
you never know.
But so that, I mean, this kind of speaks to, I know this is kind of a complicated lot and we're trying to
It's not, the driveway is not used by the, our project or the fit out. So the laundromat is not gonna be used in the driveway. And actually, I think we pointed out in another, one of the things we're gaining is that now that Jeter's is not using that curb cut, there's the possibility of having on-street parking if the village decides.
In front of the two doors.
Yeah.
but those garage doors, I mean,
No,
what is?
If you go up.
In front of-
I'm sorry, in
yeah,
front of
it's
the-
all-
Got it. Got it, right, because, and that's part of the BAR approval, which we'll talk about in a moment, but that's gonna be just a regular, kind of a storefront entrance at this
Yeah.
point. That's a fair point, I think that's actually an important one. But that just, all right, just to be really clear though, there are two garage doors on the back part, that is part of the same building on the same lot, but you're not doing any work or making any
No.
changes for that part of the lot.
Yeah.
So effectively, when we're looking at the site plan, that is an existing driveway to these two garage bays that are there now and will be there, no change.
No, but
Okay. And then, how would that, no, that loading dock, that's an adjacent lot, right? That on the lower.
Yeah, that's
That's
the
across the
fire.
street.
Fire.
Across the street.
Okay. So we just go back to the site plan real quick, which is on that page. On the side. All right, and so there is I see there's like a fenced in area that's an existing trash removal area. And this use will use that same area,
yes.
and that's currently used by the
Mhm.
car wash. Okay. Board questions on site plan? Can we look at the building elevations and kind of look at this from a VAR perspective?
And this application did receive HPC approval, just for the boards.
Thank you. Got it. And signage in general is not,
Once we have I mean, that's where the sign thing is going to be,
Right.
when we have the exact material and the.
so really, and the only changes here, just again, for the record, and everything, it is, when HPC has already reviewed a project, this board is, typically deferential to the determinations by them, because they have a more specific threshold that they're reviewing under. But, if we kind of go side by side, because you actually have existing and proposed here, right? Which I find incredibly helpful, thank you. So yeah, it's just that center bay where you're changing out, that's really all that we would do. And that's the same bay that we just mentioned a moment ago, might potentially be an area where a curb cut could be removed and a parking space restored.
Right.
Though I don't know that we have enough information to know that there's enough room to actually add a parking space there, but that's something that would be worth looking into. Okay,
There's no external lighting in the building?
Whatever lighting is there.
Well, I mean, I don't see it in the elevation, so I'm just
You can
curious.
see the. I think if you go to the picture of it, I don't, there is not. Like.
There's a street light right in front of the
Yeah.
building, I think.
But not on the building
okay,
itself.
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So we know there's the street.
And I think there was a negative cement. I think there was an HVAC unit and that's gonna be taken out. So it will be,
An HB, that through wall.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I mean, those two white doors are the tenants' doors, correct? The
Mhm.
upstairs tenants. I'm just sort of surprised there's no lighting for them to enter there.
Well, like you said, the street light, the bright light.
is that a village owned street light there?
Is
Okay. Um. I guess, yeah, I just want to make sure we don't have any other kind of questions or comments on that. What are the hours of operation? I think it was listed on the site.
oh,
plan.
6 to 10, that's per code,
6 AM.
6 a.m. to 10.
Yeah. Okay. So just to be clear then, so we've looked at the parking issue. I think, at a very kind of extreme interpretation of the change, we're going from 0 to 6, which falls within the automatic waiver for the first 10. So I think that seems to be code compliant. And the BAR was previously reviewed by the HPC. And and then the former parking area is now being understood to be the existing driveway with no changes and no work there. So the site plan is really walking in and out of for the purpose of this review, walking in and out of the front door. Okay. I guess, can we have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
Michael Aronson, motion to reopen the public hearing.
Harry Talbot, I second. And any objections? No objections, we're now in a public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak to this application? Don't see anybody here. If there's anybody on Zoom, you can use the hand raise function if you'd like to speak to this application. And I don't see any hands. So before we leave, just to be clear, I think that we've covered all of the comments, Tony and Valerie, from your reviews. I know that we talked about the square footage discrepancy in the drawings, which, while a minor one, needs to be addressed. That would be a condition of any approval.
That's correct.
Are there any other conditions that we should be considering?
No.
Not a license to operate before. I thought I saw that in the.
Yeah, that's something that they'll need a permit for from the building department.
Yeah, they get a business occupancy, we have to prove that they have proper documentation license to own their business.
So we don't need to make that a condition.
Got it. Any other concerns from the board? I know we talked about lighting. I know there's a street light there. I think that the lighting that's proposed is going to be equivalent to the lighting that's there to the residential uses. How just, I don't know, what are the hours of operations for the village operated streetlights? Or
Goodness, caught me off guard. I don't know.
sorry.
I think aren't they triggered by?
Yeah.
Lighting sensor?
Yeah.
But okay. That makes sense actually, because I've got them on my street and they will sometimes go off in the middle of the night and I'm wondering why. Okay, I think we have enough information. Are we comfortable closing the public hearing? Can I have a motion for that?
Harry Talbot, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Michael Aronson, second.
Any objections? No objections, that motion carries. So I think that we have, as we just summarized, gone through the totality of the application, and I don't think we have any other open comments other than the minor ones which we just listed as conditions. So can I have a motion to approve the applications with the conditions that we just discussed?
Deanna's motion to approve the application with the above referenced conditions.
Olivia, second the motion.
And roll call.
Okay, Carla Elliott. Aye. Angelica Kanganis.
Aye.
Eric Talbot.
Aye.
Michael Aronson. Aye. And J.R. Roy.
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Actually, agenda here. Yes, so next is item 3B. This is planning board 10-2024 and BAR 18-2024 for 50 North Island. Best Buds LLC, and this is a site plan and VAR approval for conversions of the Optimum Bakery to an adult use dispensary. So I know we saw the applicant last meeting in July. And so I see the applicants here. I think before we go to the applicant again, just I know that we have had a few different comments and memos that have gone out from our consultants. So I think maybe we can kind of get like a high level overview of where we stand with that process.
Yeah, that's fine. You always start.
You guys should just flip a coin every time.
Yeah, so they addressed a bunch of our comments. There are still some smaller outstanding comments, plan cleanup. So I think we discussed with JB about getting us the hydrology analysis, the existing pipes you're connecting to. They had also, there was an issue with one of the columns in the garage hitting a turnaround car. So I think you're gonna eventually get rid of that. So those are the big items for us. Other than that, just some grading issues that can be cleaned up. Just more information on the plans, but for the most part, nothing jumps out.
Okay.
I think our biggest site plan concern deals with the landscaping and the lighting. Really just the note that, the photometric plan was provided, but it does seem to indicate maybe light emissions beyond the property line, and that the color temperatures of the lights are proposed to be 5,000 K, which we think is pretty bright. So we suggest that maybe the board might want to request a reduction in the kelvins, and then also just have the applicant relook at the lighting plan. In terms of landscaping, they're proposing landscaping above that wall, which is going to be pretty tall. And so, I mean, to some extent, the landscaping that they're proposed is native, and so it should be pretty drought tolerant, but we're just kind of highlighting that. And then also that they're suggesting some flower areas, and we've just suggested a little bit more information in terms of the site plan. But other than that, they dealt with all our other comments to a larger extent.
Okay. Maybe we can just start. I know there's the issue of the column, which seems to be a relatively substantial one. We can.
I think it was, there we go.
Okay, so this is one of the car operations, right, where there's. Yeah, maybe, sure.
Yes, what we decided to do in our own conversation with Tony, there are two columns that seem to be in the way of the maneuvering, but there is an existing wall that we're planning to keep the building. So we're proposing is to relocate that column. Structurally, we're going to relocate it to the existing wall. If you zoom in, you can see it now. Along, there's the old building, so there is the property, the wall that we keep in for privacy and security.
Right.
So we're just gonna move the two structural columns to.
Are those the two columns in the hash marks next to the, they're like rectangular columns?
That one, they can move to.
Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna move to the wall. See the wall adjacent to it?
Got it. The walls, they're gonna be moved plan right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. There's no setback issues and you can build up to that.
Right, no, it's an existing wall, so.
Okay. Got it. So maybe we can spend a moment on the landscape and lighting plans. They're both in this set, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There's the system shrubbery on the top of the, oh, you want to go to the lighting first?
Tell me where to go, JB. Tell me where
All
to
right,
go.
so go up, let's deal with the landscape first. Let's
Be efficient. They were in the same areas where we are.
Go up.
there.
Yeah.
So there is planting adjacent to the refuge area. they were going for a flower planting. We no problem to coordinate or, do something along that line. There's also, and we discussed that as well.
So that's that's on grade with the parking lot, but then.
No, that is, yeah, the landscape, all the three you see are above the wall.
Right, but the flower area
Yes,
is at the bottom of the wall, and
Yes.
then you're planting, and so it's just one row of, this is just kind of like a,
It's a mix of native.
okay.
I understand.
And then the rest of the lot back there, what is that?
This is all, that's all existing, it's outside, a little bit different. It's all kind of.
There's an existing tree back there, right? We kind of kept asking.
Yeah,
You
but
showed the
it's
location.
not-
When you look at the aerial, we wanted to see how close it was to the wall construction, so maybe we just put similar.
Okay.
Because when you look at the aerial, there's a tree somewhere, I think it's somewhere here.
Right.
It might be
outside-
far enough
yeah,
away, but I just
It's
want to
outside,
confirm.
yeah,
I mean, the area of disturbance is gonna be, how far back on that
it's the
hill?
red, it's the red line.
That's the red line. And so, okay, I mean, and then that area it's calling it grass, is that what that is? Is there,
It's
is
grass, it's like wild,
it just like a, it's just,
yeah, I
okay,
mean,
It's a meadow mix or something,
Yeah.
though, yeah.
okay. Okay,
then
how are you, I mean, how do you access that area for maintenance? I mean, how's that, I guess it's the same issue that it is now, but how's that area, you're building a new wall, so right now the building goes back to there, right?
Yeah.
So how would that area be accessed in the future for maintenance? I know, to Valerie's point in terms of,
Well, there's an access in between the two buildings that's currently being used, right? The same way everybody's accessing now, there's between a few. Push it down.
doesn't the building go all the way back there now? Or just the second, there's no doors from the second story of the
No,
building? So this will be more or less on grade with the second floor, right?
Yes. And if you see there's two structures in the property line kind of line between the two structures. Right now, that's how it's being.
Is that like a slope that goes straight up alongside
There's
your wall?
such a
There's a
stairs.
staircase there?
Yeah,
But is that
No.
straddling the property line, or is it on one side or the other?
it's I guess towards the back is more on the other.
More on the other side?
But we have, to the end of the building is a kind of strong.
No, board comments or questions?
No, I
Okay.
just, I'm not sure but can you see the photo again with that photo? Would the photo help explain this?
There a better one than?
No, if you go, keep going down, we have existing photos at the end.
Okay. And so while we're doing that, removing those columns will address the ground issue
Yes.
in the.
We actually
parking
know,
lot?
we're moving them, we're looking.
Well, sorry.
It's just a little.
Eraser.
Okay, so now, all right. So your question, Seth, was that the second floor was even, or was it? is it
Yeah, you
weird?
can kind of see it there, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit lower than the wall in there.
What's the top of the wall above the driveway? What's the height of it?
That is gonna be, I believe, we go for 15 feet, but we have to, once we clean up there, I think we can get a better idea of, the shrubs and the meadow now.
And Tony, where are we with that wall?
We have now, we have received, one of our comments is to get, I'm sorry. One of our comments is to have structural wall plans.
Right.
I think by parking lot, you're about 24. Yeah.
I mean, we show like a standard wall, we also have the note that, every wall, especially in the Hanson, is gonna be, reviewed by usually a third party, like that.
It's 24 feet, it's about 24.
Not only is
It'll be reviewed by-
stamp and seal by
Prior
a
to
structural engineer,
issuance,
it's gonna be.
Okay, so, I mean, we're talking about moving the columns over, we're talking about getting a thorough review of that wall, because what if that wall has to be, it could either increase the area of disturbance back towards the hill, like kind of.
Well,
Just in terms of the thickness of it as they're engineering it and designing it, right? I mean, it sounds like a little bit of an open issue.
Well-
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, usually, I mean, in some cases, it's, you know, you do it prior to issuance of building permit, but
Okay.
it's your decision. I've seen it both ways.
Okay. But that's fair, as long as you don't think that there's, that the design of the wall would impact the site, that's our criteria.
And
Well, that's BAR, right? So that
Yeah.
would be something that you would have to.
Right. That's BAR though, right now, what's the material of the wall, is it a poured concrete wall? And you're not I mean, I didn't see anything where, are you cladding it with anything on the driveway side? Just, it's planned to be exposed concrete wall, I mean, just from that review, I think if anything were to change, we would have to look at that. These renderings would be good to look at actually, even, let's maybe start on the garage side. So those are you can actually see some of the columns.
Yes,
Are they rendered in there? Oh yeah, there's in the back, you can see that, right, it almost looks like a window, but that's a column, right?
yes.
Okay, so those need to be moved. Let's work our way around. So these are all, the structure is all the same, you're recladding it, so you're gonna kind of go back to the studs and kind of put a new skin,
New muslim, yeah.
CMU.
Yeah.
Um,
Everything that the lower level, the part of that, we're taking out, they usually, it was the part of that.
we
that was
talked,
built there.
can you talk a little bit about the material and what's
Yes.
going on here?
I'm sorry.
Was rendered on a rainy day, huh?
Yeah.
The sun just came out. Sunshine. Nice talk.
The rendering lines, it gives them vibrant colors.
I know while you're looking, we had talked before about the pedestrian flow from the parking area into the building, but also
We added a sidewalk.
we did,
Yeah.
okay. And I'm also curious just for pedestrians crossing the driveway, the exit to Highland Avenue so they're just, I mean, there's no
There's,
differentiation, the driveway, sidewalk, they're just,
we did put a stop sign right at the edge of
Okay.
it, yeah.
okay, that's great.
So what we had is we took the element in the corner, which was the old garage and the old entrance, and we were cladding that with the, we have a panel system, Equaton, and then all the trim is white, and then we took the stucco and we have a darker color to the stucco. That's kind of something we work together with the team, like leaf, and that's kind of the color arrangement that we were looking for.
And then underneath the storefront there, that's a masonry material?
Yes, so exterior cladding is whitish.
Oh, that fence there, that's the little, sorry, to the, on the right
That's
side of the
the
building
refuge,
between,
yeah.
we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Little space between the buildings to get into the rear. But there would be no other access to the rear other than,
Right,
because you're up at 24-foot
Yeah.
wall, so. Like,
A ladder. A ladder and a weed whacker.
yeah. I don't know if that's social compliant.
Did we see the trash storage before on the site plan or on the renderings?
it is.
Here?
Yeah, no.
That's one of the flower bed areas, I think that we were looking also for some more definition. And so, and trash removal is gonna be, there'll be private trash.
Yes.
removal. And that truck was that one of the,
Yes,
that was one of the
Mhm.
operations, right? That was illustrated.
initially, I think we use a 21 footer and, you know, the inquiry, we're gonna use a smaller vehicle if they have to be.
And that can be specified with the trash hauling company, the
Yeah.
size of the vehicle that you bring in.
And this is, you know, it's not a, there's not gonna be a lot of
portion food, it's not like a restaurant, so.
Right.
Mostly, someone's gonna be access.
And I know this was covered in the last meeting, but the trash, the only trash that would be in there would be none of the actual dispensary trash would be, right, no product
Right.
or product containing treatise.
And then if you wanna go to, sorry, buddy, to the last page,
Last page?
yes. On the last two pages have the photos of the system, which we already spoke about.
Yeah, we'll talk about photometrics as well.
Yeah, that, and then the next one talks about the photometrics. So now, because we have on each side of the property of the project, we have a wall in the building, and we have the wall of the adjacent brick building. And then it does go over the property line, but that's over the street. And I don't think our client will have an issue reducing the intensity of the lighting.
Right, the intensity and the color, I mean, it's a very kind of blue light that's being proposed right now. I guess, but just to be clear, so if we're looking at like the covered parking area, is what we call it. So that's fully covered, right? So that
Yes.
the floor slab for the cantilevered,
Yes,
space above goes all the way to the wall. So there's no like clear story or any kind of.
Right, there is no opening to the adjacent property.
All right, so that's like effectively almost like a three-sided basement.
Yes.
And then we talked about the really tall wall leading to a backyard in the back. But we look a little bit on the left side of the drawing, and then on the Highland side.
Again, we have the planter, this is 3.3 to 2.1. That's the planter along the side that we're creating.
So those are
then
the post lights.
Yeah.
The planters.
No, right now we're not showing any.
So what's that red circle in the?
The red circle is I'm sorry, okay, so you're talking about that planter.
Yeah.
I was talking about the planter against the building, the adjacent building. Yes, those two are the lights.
Got it.
And then there's 4 lights underneath the.
And how tall are those lights? Sorry, those.
4 feet?
How tall?
12.
12, okay, so they're.
Above that wall, I mean, the light will be pushed down to the wall in the back.
The wall.
Yeah, I mean, it might not affect the residents behind that wall.
Right, behind the 20, and how tall is that wall on the, I guess it's the north side of the property? The left side?
I believe that is, almost 13 or 14 feet.
Do you have an image of
Talking
that?
about the exposed,
Yeah,
yeah.
so. No, but it's not a wall. So on the north side, it's the Columbus Hall.
Yes,
So that would be. Do we have any spillage over, because I know you're only 2 feet away on that side, right? That was one of the areas that I think.
but those 2 feet that are within the property,
2 feet, yeah, no, you're required to put parking setback.
right?
Which I know that you've introduced here, but it looks like we have lights spillage that's going right up to that property.
But
into those windows.
there's a solid wall. That's the Columbus wall. If you go to the drawing above, sorry. I mean, there's
There's still windows.
There's windows there.
There's window.
Yeah, I mean, there's windows. And that was one of the. I think that's an important comment. You want to make sure that those windows are protected. So. And we talked about the columns, we talked about the landscape and plantings, and so I guess you're just gonna come back with the planting areas down below with a straightforward planting, just kind of clarity on the plantings that would go in those flower beds. I know that was one of the comments, I think you said you would provide that.
Good evening, everyone, members of the board. My name is Brian Sinspa, attorney for the applicant, Better Place 13 LLC. I know we've addressed like a number of these comments this evening. We did give a pretty comprehensive submission, which we've recognized and gone through. I'm not going to go through that all again. But I do feel that a lot of these comments that we do have, these are comments that can be addressed as conditions. The comprehensive submission that we had previously addressed a lot of the comments that we received. And I felt that a lot of the memos that we did receive were favorable. So I would ask just respectfully that a comment with regard to obviously the lighting that we've discussed, as well as the landscaping just be a condition of approval, as well as some of the other minor comments from those memos. The other piece I just want to address too is with regard to the wall. I know this came up. I just want to clarify that we understand that if there are any substantive changes to the wall subsequent to the submission of engineer's report, that we will have to come back for amended site plan approval if there are significant changes as a result of that. We understand that, but we would respectfully ask that that be a condition of approval as well, that be submitted prior to building permit. Just want to make sure that that's on the record.
All right, no, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. Yeah, I think I kind of want to hear from the board. So I think there's, have gone through all the changes. I think the staff has kind of dwindled their comments down to a pretty short list. Short but substantive. So I just want to make sure that we're comfortable with where things are before we kind of have any further conversations on it. So, are there, comments regarding, I think specifically, the lighting plan, the landscaping plan, is something that we can, maybe talk about the moving, so there's structural changes to the building that are being proposed, moving columns around, moving them over. I just want to see where you guys as a board kind of see this and the applicant's comments yourself.
So it's sort of tough to say. I kind of would want staff to weigh in and say, are these things that we really need to see sort of on the site plan and in front of us before we should act? It's a little hard for me to make a judgment. I think basically I'm pretty comfortable with most of what we're seeing so far, but given some of the items that are still outstanding, I'm just not clear whether those are best addressed as conditions of approval or whether we need to go one more round.
So at least for our outstanding items in terms of the site plan stuff, they could be conditions, and I would almost recommend maybe having the condition be referred to our latest memo and just say that the applicant needs to, address all the outstanding comments in the memo. And Tony can talk about the other.
Yeah, and I agree with the same thing. And like the applicant stated, if there's an issue with that wall or something comes up with the height of it, something has to be different, that it's their risk, they're coming back. But yeah, if the whole memo became a condition of the resolution, then yeah.
But just for clarification though, that, and for the applicant's clarification, so we usually have conditions, there's a couple different levels of conditions. These conditions would be dealing with before a site plan can get signed. Because there clearly needs to have the wall needs to be engineered, appropriately. We also have to have the columns reflected in the site plan. And we also have to have the landscaping and lighting reflected in the site plan. Then once that gets signed, then there can be a submission for the building permit, at which point the structural review can take place for that. And that would be a condition of the building permit.
I just want to add one more thing that did go through a review with our consulting traffic engineer. They seem to address all those comments. I think the only thing he wants to see is he wants to see sight lines, but in his memo, he said he's fine with that being a condition of the resolution. He doesn't think that's going to be an issue.
What did he want to see?
He wanted to see the sight lines out of the property.
Sight lines. Oh, okay.
Right, and so that could be also a condition for the site plan is referring to that memo as well.
And I know we discussed in the last meeting about the potential for an opening plan, just for traffic control during an opening phase. And I don't know who would be the best to, what would be the best way to implement that, who would vet such a plan, if that was also a condition.
Yeah, I would pass that by the traffic control. I did the same thing on the other side.
Yeah, we've done that before, so I just wanted, I would. It was brought up in the last meeting, we haven't talked about it tonight, and we all thought that was a reasonable step to take. But I would leave the actual, vetting and kind of execution of that plan to, the appropriate building professional. Okay. Other board questions before we kind of start moving forward here?
No, I would just say what was stated gives me a much greater level of comfort in terms of moving forward.
Yeah, no, it's the overall, like the center of gravity of the project is been very responsive to the, to the professionals' comments and to the comments that we had in our last meeting. And there's these kind of things around the periphery, and some are relatively large things around the periphery, but I guess in terms of like site plan approval, pretty straightforward. That column's not there.
Right.
The turn radiuses work, so it's the onus still remains on the applicant to engineer that and make that work structurally. So that is helpful. Yeah, thank you. All right, so can I have a motion to reopen the public hearing on the application?
Eric Talbot, to make a motion to reopen the public hearing.
How do you second the motion?
And any objections? No objections, that motion carries. We're now in the public hearing. Is there anybody in the room to speak to this application? I don't see anybody in the room. Is there anybody on Zoom? You can use the hand raise function if you'd like to speak to this application. And I do not see any hands going up. Okay, so I think, again, just before we move out of the public hearing, we've discussed it, we've listened to staff. I think we have, a very well-developed, sounds like a well-developed site plan that are, that staff and everyone who looked at it feels like can be changed with the appropriate conditions. And I think that the distinction between prior to site plan versus prior to construction is also a really important one. So that site plan does not get signed and put on the record until these changes are made. And, so I think that's, and if anything that comes up will change the way this works, that will be flagged at that point and then be back here before us. That in mind, a motion from the board to close the public hearing.
Eric Talbot, to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Michael Aronson, second.
Any objections? No objections, that motion carries. And I just want to be clear, just procedurally, because I know we have BAR and we have site plan, and we've worked this different ways in the past. I want to make sure that we're kind of being responsive. Do we want to do two separate votes, one for BAR, or are we okay grouping them together? I feel like it's gone back and forth over the last.
Well, I think the last application was, you just did for both and you did one vote.
One vote.
You can group them together.
One vote, okay, that's fine.
We do two separate resolutions.
Understood. Okay, two separate resolutions, but we can do it as a single vote. I think the, I think the comment that you made, Valerie, before is to refer back to the professional memos as far as conditions.
Yeah, you want me to run through the conditions?
Yeah,
We have a couple conditions will be that, that the applicant must, address all outstanding comments in the KSCJ memo, the Nelson Hill Voorhees memo, and the traffic engineering memo. The applicant is acknowledging that a structural engineer will need to be retained by the village of Ossining, and it would be part of an escrow payment. That there should be a grand opening plan submitted and approved by the village prior. This one would probably be prior to probably this, would you want the CO? Or for that one, the grand opening plan? Yeah. CO. And that this was from a prior meeting where you had all deliveries only in the garage and after business hours.
Right.
And that will just be a general condition for this particular site.
Okay. Board members good? Okay. With those conditions spelled out, can we have a motion to conditionally approve the application?
Michael Aronson, motion to conditionally approve the application as outlined.
Claudia Diaz, second the motion.
And roll call.
Okay, Eric Talbot,
Aye.
Carla Elliott. Aye. Angelica King-Dennis. Aye. Michael Aronson. Aye. Chair Roy.
Aye. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck. All right, so next up on the agenda, we have, 3C, this is planning board 07/2024, PAR 13/2024. And this is 237 North Highland Avenue. And this is site plan MBA approvals for alterations to the existing building facade. Being that facade being really a parking structure, I guess, and also the facade of the existing building. So, we just did the last couple go arounds. You guys can, rock, paper, scissors, let's see who goes first, but just give us the high level changes. I know this will be a fast one.
Since they made the adjustments to the site plan as we were kind of recommending, we have no further comments. Just that movement of the pumps just kind of solves pretty much most of the issues. So, yeah, so we're okay at this point.
Great.
And same with me as well.
Awesome. And maybe we could just put up the site plan so that everybody here can take a look at it. And we should also just take a very quick look at the revised renderings of the drawings as well, because this is a VAR as well. But let's just start with make sure that we're clearly defining the changes that are being made to the pump orientation. Okay. And so just as a reminder, we had these kind of diagonal in pumps that weren't really giving enough space to go around. So now everything has been rotated and it's all parallel to Route 9. So more questions on the site plan. I think we're good, and we've talked about it in our consultants have been clear. And this is the rendering. So we're looking at the canopy, as well as I know some changes to the overall street facade. So
And some excellent gas prices. I mean.
Oh, wow. Those numbers don't match what we approved. It's so good to read it reverse.
Yeah.
All right, I mean, I don't know how much we really talked about the facade elements, but if we can just kind of even on the, do we have any just the standalone elevations of the building as well? So the canopy we did talk a lot about the canopy. These are the changes. We have touched on it, but just really quickly, materially. I don't know, yeah.
Good evening, Joseph Thompson, architect. So no major changes since the prior presentations, very similar composition. It's long, horizontal, linear, modern type lines, almost has like a bit of a retro feel. We have the diverging angular corner that's meant to relate to the canopy. It's kind of a high-tech canopy that's it's got photovoltaics integrated into it. So it's very interesting column structure, even with the rotated configuration. And so the updated architecturals really just reflect the rendering that shows that canopy with all of the pumps parallel with the building, and then also the entry, I think at our last meeting, had been relocated around to the north side of the building. We retained that. That was still a good idea. That still helps to better define pedestrian and vehicular circulation to mitigate potential for conflicts. So everything else is really the same. It's a stucco facade that's proposed with some blue, highlighted metal paneling that'll complement the Sunoco branding on the canopy itself. One main sign for the building, along with some identification signage and aluminum type hanger rod canopies that again have like integrated indirect LED illumination. So we're not seeing the bulb directly, but warm color temperature, 3000 Kelvin. So with these long linear illuminated elements.
Excellent. And I know the signage, there were no further signage comments or anything like that as far as how these were being projected on the facade. All right, board members. Good, no comments. Okay. Can we have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
Brian, do you have a motion to reopen the public hearing?
Michael Aronson, second.
All right, any objections? No objections, that motion carries. We're now in a public hearing. Is there anybody in the room to speak to this application? Do not see anybody in the room. Is there anybody on Zoom? You can use the hand raise function. Do not see anybody on Zoom. I have a motion from the board to close the public hearing.
Eric Talbot, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
And I'll put me in a second.
Any objections to that? There are none. The public hearing is closed. So as far as conditions or any other comments that we should be making, for nothing. Okay. I know you guys have closed all your comments and that's typically where that list would come from, so that makes sense. Okay, so, I think if the board is satisfied, as we just did a moment ago, we would do one vote for the two resolutions, the VAR and site plan approvals. And those are the only two things that we're looking at here. So, can I have a motion for those two approvals?
Eric Talbot, I'll make the motion.
Michael Aronson, second.
And the roll call?
Okay. Art Talbot.
Aye.
Angela Ganis.
Aye.
Carla Elliott.
Aye.
Michael Aronson.
Aye.
Chair Roy.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot for your time. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Okay. All right. One moment before we go to the next item. Just gonna put one quick.
Okay. Yeah. It's okay.
Okay. Okay, all right, so next up, we have, item D on the agenda, which is at 3D. Planning Board 13-2023 VAR 15-2023, for 80 Main Street. And I think we're just gonna get an update from the applicants, so,
I think this particular application, I don't even know if you're gonna get an update from the applicant as opposed to that they resubmitted, a structural report and a geotech report, and the structural engineers are reviewing this. And so ultimately, we're still working through, I think, what's gonna happen on the slope, and then ultimately it'll come back to you for a site plan approval
okay,
in the future.
Well, yeah, and we're still kind of waiting for it. They had discussed doing, it appears to be Shot Creek with longer pins into the rock. But we only received the geotech report, so I kind of was more like getting the structural engineer ready. By the way, this is coming, so I didn't know if they planned on making the submission on those walls for review. I think it all has to be reviewed together.
okay.
So I think they're right now in a bit of a holding pattern.
We've got one step in the process because the analysis of the existing conditions has been produced, right? And so now that's gonna lead to a development of the scope, which then needs to be reviewed and before they come back here.
Correct, yeah.
And it also means that this application should remain on your agenda. It's still
Right, there's been
Right.
movement, there's been,
Yes.
submissions and evolution, so, that makes sense. All right, any questions from the board for our staff on the status of that project? I have a motion to adjourn the application item.
And I'll put me in as motion to adjourn. I'll give you a second motion.
Any objections? No objections, that motion carries. Okay. We will move on now to item 3E. So this is Planning Board 07-2022 and VAR 05-2022 for Riverwalk Residence. Of course, so this is a list of excavation and fill permit, site plan approval, conditional use, VAR, and wetlands permit for 40 residential building. So I think we have the applicant here who can give us an update of where we are, and then we'll talk to the staff about next steps.
Very nice. Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Daniel Patrick from Cutting Fader on behalf of the applicant. I'm joined this evening on Zoom by our project engineer, Jan Kanye, and Bill Boyce. He's the environmental consultant and landscape architect. So as indicated, we are proposing to redevelop the approximately 5.92 acre site at Snowden Avenue and Van Wyck Street with a new 48-unit multifamily dwelling. It'll be 4 stories tall and will have 12 one-bedroom units and 36 two-bedroom units. There will be 97 off-street parking spaces. 5 of the proposed dwelling units will be proposed as low income for 60% or less AMI for the county. And generally, we think this is a great project that's very supported by the village's planning documents. We provided a list of explanations in our written correspondence from earlier this month, explaining the correspondence and the village's planning documents that this helps achieve. But I just want to note, a few aspects of the project that I think are very important to consider going forward. One of which is being the new trailway connection being proposed from the Van Wyck Street and the Snowden Avenue intersection. There will be a connection to the existing Crawbucky Nature Preserve. This is specifically recommended in the village's planning documents. The applicant's also proposing to restrict 3.19 acres for public open space. That would be the western portion of the property. The developed portion of the property will be the eastern portion of it. It's about 2.73 acres. But as indicated, the rest of the property will be restricted or reserved for public open space for future use by the public. There's also being proposed 4 public parking spaces within the Van Wyck cul-de-sac for public use to allow for access to the new trailway connection and the new trail services. And so the renderings are up on the screen now. I think this shows a really good visual of what the building would look like. Right now, what you're seeing is the rear. This will be the portion of the building facing the area that is being proposed to be preserved as open space. If you go to the architectural plans, I think you get a better sense of what the whole project will look like from a site-wide perspective.
Yes.
It was in our last submission, so it should be towards the end.
The site plan or the?
Oh, here.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you can scroll down. That's the existing conditions. You can scroll down further. I think the planting plan is probably the best one. Yeah, this one looks. All right, so as you can see, on the right side of the screen is the Snowden Avenue and the Van Wyck Street cul-de-sac. The building's being proposed on the eastern portion of the property. It's trying to limit the disturbance of the site. The western portion of the property, as you can see, will house the 2 relocated wetlands. Currently, there's 4 wetlands on the property. They are a result mostly of the off-site drainage that's being directed onto the property from adjacent properties. They're low functioning, not very healthy wetlands. So the applicant is proposing to redevelop that area, relocate the wetlands and increase the size of the wetlands significantly. As you can see in the bluish purplish shaded area on the left of the building development area. And as you can see, there is the trailway system that begins in the cul-de-sac, which is going to snake through the middle of the wetlands that are being proposed. We'll go through the remainder of the site and then it will actually extend onto the village-owned property into the existing trailway system at the Crawbucky Nature Preserve. So this is more than just the redevelopment of the site for a residential multifamily building. This is an asset to the village. This is something that we're proposing to work with the village on to address what they've already identified as something they'd like to see, which is the increased connectivity from the Van Wyck Street and Snowden area to the existing Crawbucky Nature Preserve. So we are here this evening. We had appeared earlier this year for an excavation and fill permit. We received that permit. We did some soil testing. We provided the results of that soil testing to the village. We are looking to, get this project moving in the right direction again. There's been a bit of a speed bump, but we are, again, like I said, looking to work with the village on this. We think this is a great project. I think this really achieves a lot of the village's goals and planning initiatives. So we are looking for some feedback and trying to understand, what the village would like to see and what the plans would like to see to help move this project forward.
All right. I think it might be a good opportunity just to talk. Tony, you've obviously been very involved recently, so you can kind of give us where you are with your review and your thoughts, and then.
Yeah, so we've been going through an extensive review. I've kind of spent a bit of time on this, just reviewing everything. It's still we still have to get the mitigation reviewed by that department, so we are getting there. I just want to make a note that, the calculations for the stormwater were left out of the SWIP, so you might want to just maybe get that to
Yeah.
us. And the other thing is you're proposing that sewer extension. You might want to start engaging health department on that.
Yeah.
Because that might be your hang up, meaning.
Yeah,
that
and
might be
and
a
the most,
sensitive item.
yeah, the most revised plans that we submitted show we're not connecting to the existing line used by
Yeah.
the Snowden House. We're proposing parallel line in that easement. As an alternative, we have also discussed with our engineering team, if there's issues with that easement, whether or not we can bring that line out to Snowden Avenue instead and connect there. I think that's a possibility.
You'd have
There'd be some more pumping that'd be needed, but we're proposing it as we see the best option. But again, that's something we can continue working with your office and.
Yeah, definitely, like the health department might.
Yeah.
For a better time, but,
Of course.
other than that, I did notice many differences from the previous application, so kind of going through that and just checking things off, that was still outstanding on that as well, but.
And how well, to the degree that there have been changes on site from, that were made during the time that the original application was presented to us now. So, I mean, are those changes impacting the nature of the review?
No, to me, it just, it feels like, the new survey has been implemented onto it, like showing the disturbances. It's just different tie-in points. It didn't change that much. All the areas of that disturbance are pretty much under the building, where the building was gonna be anyway. I don't want to speak on the wetland portion of it because that's
Yeah.
still being reviewed, but the disturbances in the wetlands, that's all being reviewed as well. But I didn't see a significant crazy change from the disturbances and the plan is now.
Okay, I mean, I think all of these things then speak to the, maybe more the Valerie led side, which is the secret end of everything, which I know is probably gonna be the center of gravity of everything as we try to move forward.
Right, so we need to, so this board, a number of months ago issued basically a part two. We sent it to the applicant. The applicant has been submitting stuff to address that part two in terms of items that could potentially have a significant adverse impact. Our memo that we issued really focuses on, more or less checking the boxes that they provide, what you would typically provide in terms of, like, for example, like, it possibly might have a bald eagle's nest. And so they said there was a habitat that was performed, but, they need to still submit to New York State DEC for review. So there's some items that they still need to work in terms of submissions to certain agencies and getting responses from those agencies. What we plan to do next time is to start diving a little bit deeper into some of the information that they provided us thus far and see if there's any other outstanding information that's required in order for this board to be able to say or to start drawing conclusions as to whether there's a significant adverse impact on some of the environmental issues. And then once seeker is complete, and that is either theoretically at some point you're gonna have to decide on a pause deck, which requires an environmental impact statement, or a neg deck, which then would finish the seeker, and at that point they could go back to the ZBA for their variances and then start the site plan review with this board.
Can you just remind me where the EPA, or just the village environmental advisory group is with their review of this?
Right, so the EAC already reviewed it once for LWRP consistency, and they looked at some of the items dealing with the wetlands. We are recommending that they go back, now that there's been some modifications to the site plan, especially dealing with the potential wetlands. Once all that information's in, they can go back to the EAC, basically have them review and just get another concurrence that's still consistent with the LWRP. I think the EAC also wanted to see some additional information on stormwater. So I think I actually spoke to the applicant's attorney today, and we talked about trying to get them to the EAC like once, right? And having them deal with everything. So where that is in the time frame, that has not yet been determined, but it wouldn't necessarily affect your seeker review.
They weighed in on LWRP and they'll reevaluate that. But do they have any comments, or did this board refer to them for any comments on the wetland portion of the application?
Not that I.
It was previously
No.
referred for both LWRP consistency and wetland review. It went for, and they issued their LWRP consistency. But they said it was too premature to make any sort of recommendations regarding the wetlands and
Right.
stormwater, so they asked us to come back. So we had intended to go back eventually as, she was indicating that if we have to go back for the wetlands and the stormwater review, I think that's the appropriate time to go back and get any sort of consistency, re-evaluation, redetermination if we need one.
Is there, would the timing of that work out? I mean, if board members, I'd be happy to hear from you as well, just kind of given the nature of this work, if we're doing a SEPA review, having comments or feedback from that body, I think would be helpful for this board.
Yeah, so I would recommend, because I think we should probably wait for your wetlands consultant to issue a report, and at that point, then we can have them go back to the EAC.
Consultant first.
Because the wetlands consultant is also gonna look at not only they're looking at the proposed developments, but also what took place on site as a result of the
Sure.
additional fill.
Gotcha. That all makes sense. And I guess as we get closer to having all that information, I know I mentioned the possibility of maybe this is more of a work session type scenario where we can kind of dig in and kind of devote, I think, the time and thought and energy that's needed to kind of give you guys the feedback and kind of know where everything stands, and also, make sure we're listening to into the community and seeing how that goes. So, so that's something we'll keep as an open possibility there as well. Okay, so I don't know. I think that really kind of covers.
Yeah, and I think for your October meeting, I think Tony and I were both planning to issue a memo at that point, dealing with more of the details. So then at that point, after you review those, we can discuss whether you need to have, want to have a work session.
Okay, that's perfect. That makes sense.
Okay.
That's why if you can give me those hydrographs.
Yeah, no,
They're just left out of the
the engineer's
PDF.
on right now, so
Yeah.
hopefully.
And I think you'll have, and I think, Jan will have
Yeah.
a wetlands report by then too.
Okay, so we'll have, a lot more of those pieces in place where we can get a clearer picture of where all this is. Awesome. Okay, I think just procedurally, just, this was on the agenda and I just want to kind of go into a public hearing on this. Is there, can I just have a motion from the board?
Eric Talbot, I'll make the motion.
Michelle, we can get a second.
Any objections? No objections, we're in a public hearing. Is there anybody here from the public in here or on Zoom? If you're on Zoom, you can use the hand raise function to speak to the application. I do not see anybody. I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Michael Aronson, sorry. Michael Aronson, motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Eric, second. Heard her. Sorry. It's all good. Any objections? No objections, that motion carries. All right, so I think we kind of.
Yeah,
have a
so
good-
between now and next month, we can provide the calculations that Tony was asking for.
Right.
Is there anything else that we should be providing, or should we wait for the comments and then kind of go from there? I don't want to keep confusing things.
Besides
Yeah.
any agency, correspondence,
Yeah, so just an update on that. We did submit the joint filing to the Army Corps and DEC last summer, it was June 2023. Since then, we've actually put that on hold because they were giving comments. There were really comments that were specifically, would have been best addressed once we have approval from this board. So it was kind of putting the cart before the horse there. We can share those comments and the correspondence we've gotten and
That'd be
see if
good.
there's a different approach, but also part of the application, like I said, includes the off-site work to connect the trail. And that requires a separate permit, which I don't think we're gonna get the village to sign off on until we probably have approval for the site plan as a whole. So there's.
It'd just be good to know, where all the
Yeah.
pieces are, then you'll understand.
Yeah, and
where
we
those
can
connect in the
discuss
process.
with staff and consultants and, make sure we're all on the same page. 'Cause I don't want to miss anything and also don't want to misstate anything. And I want to, we're going at this the most efficient way, of course, so.
Understood.
Aside from that, that's all I got.
Very good. Have a motion to adjourn this for tonight?
no,
Oh, wait,
you still have a couple more things.
no, adjourn this is.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very mindful of that. Let that two little.
Just
words.
too excited when you're like.
I was gonna be here till 1. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, so do you have a motion to adjourn the item? You did, all right. Hey, there, no, exactly, we're good. All right, so that's good. So we are now, so I guess we'll talk about where we are with adjourned items. And I know then we at the very end of the agenda, we also have some additional business. But let's just kind of go through the adjourned list first.
Do you want to call for 5 Sherman one more time? And
Oh, my goodness, I can do that, yes. Is there anybody here for 5 Sherman? Online?
speak
Raise your
now?
hand, speak now, or you're gonna be pushed to October? No?
Diane, Michelle, Stephen. Going once, twice.
3 times, sold. We will see you in October. All right. So now we can just talk quickly about, thank you for that, Karen. I knew that was
Good looking
gonna
out.
eventually roll out of my head. We go, yeah, so just adjourned items. Are there any applications here that we have any updates on?
So, 171 is still adjourned and, we're waiting, this one, we're gonna give it a couple more months, see if we can get some resolution. It's still dealing with the underground culvert.
Got it.
Yes.
But 99 Croton Avenue, we did send them an email letting them know that they needed to resubmit, and provide additional information, address the comments in order to remain on the agenda. They did not submit anything, so at this point, we recommend that the board remove this application from the agenda and then they can resubmit when they're ready.
Any objections from the board? There are none. Remove it. Okay. And honestly, all that means is they'll need to renotice before they appear. But
Yeah, and then also, we're gonna be asking people to submit like a new application and stuff, because some of them because some of them have, for example, 10 Marble Place is looking to maybe come back on the agenda, but it's been 6 months, so we need to make sure it's the same ownership, all that stuff,
Right.
so.
Okay.
But yes, but they can, but this is just noting that there was no decision, you're just removing them, and then they can come back whenever they're ready.
Makes sense. Okay, so the last item on the agenda is additional board. And this is kind of evaluation feedback to the Board of Trustees on a
EV.
local law for
Yeah.
EV chargers.
Yeah, so just let me give you a little background. So in the village, there clearly are electrical vehicles charging stations within the village. But when we started getting requests for basically third-party companies to come in and install a vehicle charging stations and charge. So it's almost like an additional use on site plans. And in addition to that, some of these EV charging stations now require certain electrical permits and require review from the building department. So the village board decided to move forward with adopting like EV regulations that covered both EV charging stations, level 1, level 2, and level 3. For the most part, level 1 is being proposed to be exempt from any site plan review, and it's basically they can just move forward as long as they meet the uniform code and have an electrical permit from the building inspector. Level 2 and level 3 do require a building permit and electrical permit. However, they do not require site plan approval unless 3 specific conditions occur. One is that the new construction of level 2 or level 3 EV charging stations actually reduce the number of parking spaces required by the code, depending upon whatever equipment needs to be installed, or the retrofitting of the existing like parking garage that would remove or reduce or relocate an ADA compliant space, because that would trigger site plan review. And then the third is if the EVs are going to be equipped with a internally illuminated screens, or one or both sides, and they're located within 50 feet of a public right of way or residential zoning district, that would require site plan review. So basically that is the criteria in which this board would potentially review those EV charging stations, and the rest really deal with more regulations in terms of installation and requirements.
So it's only under those three exceptions that it's.
That we even come to this board.
Right. And this is, I'm sorry, and that's regardless of whether it's in a 1, 2, or multifamily situation.
That's correct.
So even if somebody in their private house wanted to put in a level 2 or 3 charger and it would,
They would have to go to the building department to pull, but they would not need to come here for site plan approval.
right, even if it met any of those, within the public right of way and screening.
Well, if it did, right, so it would technically trigger if for some reason they were gonna have an illuminated screen
Okay,
in like in
yeah.
their, right,
Yeah.
then yes, technically it
Got
would trigger review in this board.
Could you just explain the differences between the 3 levels? Because I'm not clear what.
There
What
are,
would be considered, level 1 seems kind of low, is
Yeah.
that like a half and half?
I think level 1 would be more like if somebody putting a charger on.
right, charger in the garage,
Like an overnight
Yeah.
triple charger type of a thing?
And
Oh, the ones
some-
that take like 12 hours to charge.
yeah, and
Okay,
some,
got it.
some garage, I mean, residential homes even put in level 2s now, because I think
Yeah.
Tesla requires level 2,
Yeah.
for right? Which is why we're not having that necessarily, require site plan review. And then level 3 is your fast chargers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I know that we received some comments from those, posted.
Yes, so these comments came directly from the applicant that's gonna seek putting in level 3 chargers potentially in the Stop and Shop lot, and their biggest concern was dealing with the lighting regulations, because right now we were requiring that no, lighting should not go beyond the lot lines, and they're and they're suggesting that that abutting residential parcels, public right of ways may not exceed 0.5 foot canvas. So they're,
As opposed to 0.
right,
0.25.
because the level 3 charging stations would be illuminated,
There already is a level 3 at,
but they're not illuminated at this point.
Right. and those wouldn't be, those are existing grandfathered, I would assume.
Right, so the illumination ones are going to have basically advertisements on,
Got it.
so it's gonna be almost electric billboards.
Those are like the Tesla ones that are in the other kind of section of that shopping center.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
closer to
they've got
9.
superchargers by the.
Yeah,
Um,
but then if these are for the Stop and Shop shopping area, what is, because if I'm like imagining that, it seems like there's like kind of like a wall, like I don't understand where the book handle would go over to like a neighbor.
So if this is gonna be for any parking lot, so anybody that is interested in coming in and putting in level 3 charging stations or any charging station that's gonna have an illumination, if this would apply to all those. So in terms of like Stop and Shop, if they're gonna go ahead and they don't trigger any of these requirements, they can just go to the building department, pull the building permit, and that's it, and you won't see the application.
Mhm.
If for some reason it would trigger some of these requirements, then you would see the application for site plan approval.
But those requirements are almost, ones you would need, because you're affecting, if you're changing parking,
Yeah, basically. Right,
or adding some sort of like, yeah.
Yeah.
Landscaping or screening component, right? Was it screening of them? Let me just look, maybe I
so
misunderstood. that, or-
the 3 requirements are site plan is for site. Okay. All new construction of level 2 and level 3 EV charging stations, reducing the number of parking spaces required by the village code. Removing, reducing, or relocates 1 or more American with Disabilities Act compliant parking spaces. Or where EV charge is eternally screened 1 or 2 sides and within 50 feet or closer to a public right of way or residential zoning district.
Right, and that's the area where the foot candle requirement is.
No, just in general, we're saying lighting should not go beyond the
Which is,
property line.
right, which is a standard
It is.
requirement for any site plan review that we do.
In the village, yes,
even
that's
in the
correct.
village. So, I mean,
That's it.
that, all right, sorry, that's a little bit clearer. I think I may have misread that. Okay, and this applies both, I suppose it applies equally to installations in existing existing properties as well as it would in
New property.
new properties.
Right.
Obviously, a new property is if you're proposing it, because you're not changing or reducing parking spots because you're defining that. So in new development, it would really almost be the third point that would really only ever come up.
That's correct. I mean, in a new development, you would probably be seeing it for site plan approval because there'd probably potentially something else associated with that.
Right.
Yeah.
There's, and it's, I think I'd ask this question at another point, but there's no the law is not requiring or kind of incentivizing or making any other move to have more chargers in the village. This is just kind of governing new installations based on,
Theoretically, yes, but I think the way this law is being set up, it does incentivize in terms of we're trying to reduce any obstacles in terms of permitting, so to a larger extent, anybody that wants to come in and install these types of EV charging stations can go ahead and just pull a building permit and not have to come before a land use board.
Okay. And I know you ran up to the front. Is there, if you wanted to come up?
Too short.
You've been here for a really long time.
Oh, I was like, oh, somebody, 5 short minutes.
No, not me. My name is Jessica Zalen. I'm with the law firm of Cuddy and Fader, and I am the one that submitted that letter commenting about the foot candle requirement, the lighting requirement in this local law. I'm here commenting on behalf of Shell USA Inc., which does not presently have any applications open in the village, but operates an electric vehicle charging service known as Shell Recharge, which allows EV drivers throughout the country to charge their vehicles in convenient locations, such as at existing Shell gas stations or in commercial centers, retail store parking lots, commercial shopping plazas. And our comment related to the foot candle requirement was just that we think that it might be an easier thing for our business and any other businesses that would be proposing EV charging stations with these internally illuminated screens to conform to a concrete foot candling requirement, such as 1 or 1/2 foot candle at a property line. Being as some of these stations will be located at gas stations. When you're driving down the street, if you can't see a gas station at its property line, you don't know it's there. We just want to be able to have an indication for EV owners that this is a place that they can go, they can charge their vehicle. That being said, these internally illuminated screens display only silent static images. They have auto dim features and they could be set to turn off when the nearby businesses aren't open. So I don't foresee them causing a great deal of light pollution within the village. But we just wanted to, on the record, say that we prefer to see a concrete foot candling requirement.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
thank you all for your time.
Thanks. Yeah, and I mean, I guess we do a lot of site plan review, so it just the lighting, I'm just questioning whether there should be a different lighting requirement specifically in this law that might ultimately even contradict what we have in the village code for lighting. So if the code says you can't have spillage, why would we have another, portion, another law that kind of speaks to the same issue? Whether it has the same or different, because they'd have to change it in both places in the code. That seemed a little bit, I was a little confused by that, but so I feel like it's already addressed.
I mean, one of the possibilities, right, if they had illumination that could be affecting a neighbor, they could propose in front of your board to put something screening, which would prevent that spillage from going over to another property.
Right, they could, right there.
So to put a specific candlelight amount may not matter if there's a way to screen it.
Right, I mean, the purpose is to prevent spillage and any kind of a nuisance, which is why the code already kind of provides for, you know, a lighting plan that you cannot spill. I mean, this is like something we look at almost, you know, every application practically.
Right.
So, and screening would be a way, you know, the physical block would be a way of preventing light from spilling out to another property. So that would be a way around that, for sure.
Right, well, I mean, that's theoretically if somebody's coming in for, let's just think, for the installation. And they don't need site plan approval, they would just have to demonstrate that as part of the building permit. that
Right,
they're
right,
not
got it, yeah.
Creating that.
And I would say, if I'm correct, is if there was an application where that potential to
Right.
happen, I sent them to the planning board. The applicant could propose to do something to screen that,
Right.
which would allow you to approve a
Right.
site plan. for them.
Just ask a question about how this provision operates. I'm fairly new to the Westchester land use region, so I haven't yet had an application before this board where I've had to consider light spillage at a property line. Is this portion of your code essentially saying that for a business on the street, for Stop and Shop, for instance, you can't see their sign beyond their property? You can't
No,
see their
you
sign
can,
when you're on the.
light cannot. So if you have it, and when you see light and then you see how it spreads, the spreading needs to be maintained on the property line.
But if there's, for example, a Stop and Shop sign that has glowing features, you can see that from the property line, and that's permitted. It's just, you just don't want to see like an aura of light beyond.
The projection of
Yeah.
that light, yeah.
Understood. Okay,
Overhead line. Yeah, so if you're on the edge of your property, you're still in the dark.
right.
So you can see if you're back to
Right,
the
but you
side.
can still see, like, you know, if you're walking down the street, you can still see people have lights on in their house, but you're not, their light in their house is not coming all the way onto the sidewalk.
There's no bleed.
Right.
Sure. I guess we were concerned reading the language of the code. It seems to say that you can't see any sources of light at the property line, which we would be able to see the source of the light. We just wouldn't be able to see a spillage effect. So the way that the code is written that says artificial lighting facilities of any kind with light sources visible beyond the lot line are prohibited, it sounds more restricted than what you are describing to me right now.
Okay, so we can maybe,
Say for candles
Right.
or something, for candles.
yeah,
The sentence I just read was from the existing village code section.
right,
about-
under the prohibited, yeah.
So that's where our confusion comes in, because reading that, I read that to say you can't have a business where you could see the sign once you take a step off the
Right.
sidewalk.
Right.
And that's something that we would have a hard time complying with.
Right.
Understood.
Yeah.
I think, you know, if there was a light, you know, where like there, yeah, it would require a screen that's bright enough to then to project to project onto, you know, effectively a shadow, you know, beyond that space. I don't know, you know, that may be another conversation, but.
Right, and you know, and like the village board also has your same comments, and we're gonna bring this back to another work session with them, so that can be something that can be addressed.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
For the clarification.
And any other kind of impact, input or feedback? Impact, I don't know, it's late, I mean.
I have kind of a dumb question, but once an EV charging station is added to a parking space, that effectively removes that parking space.
I wouldn't think it would remove the space.
Right.
It would be more like if they had to put charging stations and had to put equipment, and the equipment took 2 or 3 spaces that were there previously.
Right. Okay,
But
so
what if-
it doesn't, for the purposes of like, someone getting a new permit or making adjustments and they're getting grandfathered in, and they have to make the new changes. Those spaces, like say I have a parking lot that has 20 spaces, and that's my requirement according to the use of my property. If I add like 3 EV stations, even though they're within the parking space and they're meant to be, those parking spaces are meant to be just for the charging. It doesn't remove the 3 spaces as part of the requirement because it could be parked in.
That's not how we treated it
Okay.
before, because
Yeah,
we're
I
still
just-
providing parking.
Right.
spaces.
Yeah. Okay.
And theoretically, you could park there.
Yeah.
They're flexible,
without
right?
charging.
Yeah, that's the same as to say like handicap parking space.
Yeah.
Counted parking spaces, but
Yeah.
they're, you know, what now you see in a lot of these parking lots where they put spaces specifically for just, you know, people doing.
Pregnant or military or, yeah, yeah, and like,
But there's still spaces
Okay.
available, but
it's
just,
so, for applicants' purposes, it doesn't remove their required spaces, they still have that, okay.
Was a good question.
Yeah, that's a
No,
really good question.
no, I thought that was stupid, because I'm like.
I always believe there's no such
Okay.
thing as stupid.
Right, yeah,
True, true.
that sounds like a challenge to me.
that was something that we did.
Hopefully,
discuss
yes, we never
last-
learn.
That's.
It was happening where they were getting more
Yeah.
charging stations because. You know, specifically, they were allocated for specifically a type of vehicle, and if you were driving a vehicle that was gas powered, you wouldn't park there, so. it had
Yeah.
reducing space.
Yeah, exactly. And I've noticed that we do have some of them in town. And, but they're always in large lots where I would imagine they probably have more than the requirement anyway, so it may not affect them, but just for like smaller spaces, if they, you know, new builds, I know are looking at doing that for their tenants and stuff like
Right.
that, so.
I mean, but just to follow up, we do have there is decommissioning requirement that we're proposing as well, because this will hopefully prevent, you know, somebody, even if it's like a third party coming in, putting the installation and then deciding like, we're no longer going to be maintaining these, you know, these units and then just walk away, and it prevents like a lot of, and, you know, abandonment of equipment and stuff
Yeah.
throughout the village.
Do those require like, lithium ion batteries similar to like when you have a charging station at home?
So
The chargers themselves,
Yeah.
I understand, do not necessarily require lithium ion batteries, but the batteries in the EVs
Will
usually
be.
contain lithium
Yeah.
ion.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And so the fire department did review this as well, because they had some concerns with making sure, especially if they go in parking garages and stuff, and dealing with the fire, so
Yeah.
we did circulate it to them.
I know for like homes, normally there's like a safety requirement for like those new outlets. Is that something that they do in public spaces also, or is it? Like, how is that? I'm curious about, like, cause obviously you don't have like a GFI like on the street, even if you have them in like your house, but.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how they do it on the commercial space.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the chargers in your home are, you know, slower charging, so that power is like a 220 or something power, so it's, you know, it's a little different. But I believe when they, like, I think even just when we were with the parking lot that's proposed on the back of Main Street, there'll be charging stations there, but I think the fire department has a lot of man.
I like their safety, yeah.
I think the units themselves are protected, so they're hardwired, you're not plugging into an outlet that would be GFC protected, so that, but the machines themselves
Got it.
have.
The difference being in a house that plug is gonna have to eventually go back to the main box.
Right.
This is, yeah.
Yep. All right.
Any other, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, any comments?
But so I mean, does the board recommend moving forward with regulations?
Yeah, I mean. I think I'm glad that the Board of Trustees is looking into this. I think it's an important issue. I selfishly drive an electric vehicle, so.
So selfish.
I know.
That's why you're so silent when you're leaving.
But yeah, I mean, just like, you know, in terms of it's, you know, whatever, it's something that I would be happy to see, and to see more chargers, I think is a good thing just in general for the environment. In terms of where cars are going to be in the future, you know, I think it's more and more an issue. So I didn't see anything in particular that stood out other than the questions that I asked.
Okay.
All right.
Where are all those battery energy storage systems?
No, right,
I haven't seen those
at
popping up yet.
the same place.
So sorry, guys, because a lot of communities are doing moratoriums now.
Seems to be a little bit.
It's small, they hang out.
We have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, we adjourn.
That's right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any objections?
I
All right, we're gonna call. No objections.
Thanks, Amy.
No, 5-0, thank you.